Hello, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed dipping your toes into UDL last week. I've gone through most of your discussion board posts and the responses you all submitted to the activities, and I wanted to spend a few minutes summarizing and responding to some of the questions and comments. Before I do that, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the strange situation that we're all in right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of you signed up for this course after the pandemic started, so I know that you all made this decision carefully. It is important to keep up with this class weekly. Doing all of the work at once at the end will not lead to meaningful learning. You need the time to process and reflect, engage in discussions, and review feedback. So try to give yourself the time and the space to do that. However, if you're struggling, if your situation changes over the next 3 weeks, if you need support in any way, please let me know. I want this course to work for you, so if it's not, please talk to me. Okay, so back to your work from the first week. First, the pretest. In Moodle, some of the activities may be labeled as quizzes or tests, but please don't let that discourage you. There are many ways for you to demonstrate your learning in this course, and quizzes and tests are just one of them. So your responses. Many of you said that you were interested in UDL or thought UDL was helpful because it could help people who learn differently. This is an assumption that we need to put aside to be successful in UDL. The way this was framed in many of your responses makes the assumption that there is an average learner, an average person. This type of language causes an exclusion, a separation. By saying you want to help people who learn differently, we're inadvertently calling out the other. But we all learn differently. UDL is not about who's different and targeting them. UDL is about supporting everyone. It's an inclusive, proactive approach. We'll talk more about this in Module 5, but I want you to start thinking about that now. Others mentioned things like removing barriers, which is one component of UDL. One of you said, just as people have multiple ways of learning, students have multiple levels of investment in what they expect the library can and should do for them. This really resonated with me, and I'm sure that resonates with many of you as well. UDL can't completely solve this problem, but I think it can help. By incorporating UDL into your teaching and talking about UDL with colleagues and faculty, you can start changing the narrative of what the library can and should do for students. And yes, you were given a checklist as a reference, but we want to make sure that we are really using UDL for what it is, a framework, a compass to guide our teaching. The checklist and graphic organizer are just tools to help you get into the mindset and work through it, because UDL gives us a value structure with which to align our teaching. So don't get too caught up in the checklist. Focus on the framework and the state of mind. And you know what? I have to refer to the handout too. I have it hanging on my board next to my desk at work. I have it right here. I refer to it often. Many of the strategies will start to come naturally over time, the more that you do them. But we have tools like this graphic organizer for a reason, and it's okay to use them. So someone wrote, I think I might be overthinking the principles and they're getting muddled. It feels like many of the lesson elements fall into more than one UDL guideline. Yes, that is absolutely true. The examples in the general section of the course that I posted this weekend demonstrate that multiple lesson elements can fall into more than one UDL guideline. So for example, providing a rubric to students for an assignment will help with 8.1, 8.4, 9.3, 6.1, and 6.2. So you can refer to your graphic organizer to see what those are. But that's one of the great things about UDL, supporting students in multiple ways in just one component of your planning. Another person said, I feel overwhelmed by the number of guidelines. How does one prioritize? And this is where your personal teaching style, the goals of the lesson, the time that you have, and the overall context come into play. So this is where you start to use your knowledge as an educator, and you get to make those decisions. There is no one size fits all. The strategy that you use for one class might not be appropriate for another. The engagement strategy that you use for a class of 15 students won't be the same as a class of 50. So you'll be able to play around with this in Module 4. Now, in the next modules, you'll see optional activities. These are truly optional. Some of them were already there anyway, but I have added some more activities, optional activities, based on your feedback and comments from the self-assessments in Module 2. It seems that many of you have some extra time on your hands and you want more. So keep in mind that this is an intro course, but if you want more, I'm happy to give you more. For those of you who do not feel that you have the time to do the optional activities, that is okay. Do not feel pressure to do them. You will have access to the course in Moodle indefinitely, so you can always come back to this later. Or you can download the resources and activities now and save them for yourself for a later time. So that's up to you. So I will end this video with a challenge and hopefully some motivation. In your discussion posts and other responses in Module 2, many of you noted challenges to being an effective educator. We all struggle sometimes. However, I read from a few of you, you were blaming time constraints, blaming faculty, blaming the system. And yes, I shake my fist at the system sometimes too. But I challenge each of you to take responsibility for your own teaching. You've already taken a step by participating in this class, so I know that you all have the growth mindset to take a critical look at your practice and make changes based on what you learn here. For those of us in the class who are librarians, I think we sometimes forget we're in an educational setting. We are teaching. We are educators. Take pride in that and take ownership of your teaching. Don't blame the system. You can do this. So with that said, I'm going to challenge you in this class. I challenge you to think differently, to stop trying to think about everything you have to cover in the class and start thinking about what students need to learn. Really, what do students need to learn? And what's feasible for a meaningful learning experience? And that may mean radical changes to what and how you teach. It may mean having real, critical, sometimes difficult discussions with faculty or others about what's feasible and what's really important. It may mean providing more supplemental materials to use before and after classes, especially if you're someone who's stuck in that one-shot model. It may mean radical change for you, your students, and your stakeholders. Are you ready for that? Are your stakeholders ready for that? If not, this is what we'll work on over the next few weeks. UDL is not just about a set of tools, strategies, or techniques. It's about taking a different perspective on teaching and learning and actually implementing change. So, get ready. In Module 3, we're going to take on some of our assumptions and start looking critically at ourselves and our context. I'm looking forward to working with each of you in the next module. So remember, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. So I hope to see you all online soon.